Damn, son, where'd you find this?
People don't be offended by the truth. They be offended because you called out the truth. Simple as that. They don't want to hear any other narrative that makes them look bad.
And one thing I can't stand at this big grown age is somebody who act like cause and effect does not exist. Like, yes, your actions caused this outcome. Yes, what you did lit the match. Like, why are you surprised and playing victim?
Guys, Chico, they never lie.
That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late, they cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it.
Yo, 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 yo. What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good, peoples? How y'all feeling today? Peace and blessings to everybody pulling up. Salutes to everybody that was in the chat earlier this morning. That was a dope conversation, man. I love the exchange. Everybody was getting their bars off. Shout outs to Rob. Shout outs to Sid. Shout outs to the panel. Shout outs to y'all, man. We're about to close out this year, and we still here. I think that's the cause for celebration. I got Coach in the building. I got Zay in the building. So you already know we gotta chop it up. Do me a solid, like, share, repost. Let the people know that we are on. You see the title. I got the footage. Let's go ahead and bring everybody up. Yo, 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 yo. What up? What up? What up? What up? What up?
What's up? Yo, what's up? What's good? What's good?
The word? What's the word? What's the word?
Chilling, man. Just happy to be here, man. Yeah, man. It's Thursday, almost Friday. Yeah, ready to get it in.
Always, always. Hey, look, man. Shout out to Sydney. She shared this story with me. I took this specific one. I was hoping that she could make it, but I know she got some things going on with the folks. So, in honor of her, this particular subject comes straight from her. I didn't know nothing about it until she shared it. So, what I want to do is I'm going to bring this up on the big screen for the people who might not be familiar with it. I'm going to let it run its course, and we're just going to jump straight into it.
only is the Utah dad that forced his 3 young children up a 10-mile treacherous hike charged with torture, but he's now being held with no bond for attacking his wife with a hatchet. If you'll remember the story, back in October, Micah Smith took his 3 young children, 3, 4, and 8 years old, up a 10-mile hike through a mountain in treacherous weather. Result, even after they were begging to stop and go down, with him pushing that it was just going to be a good experience, even texting his wife, scolding her for having to do this alone. One of those children is still in the hospital from hypothermia. The child was unconscious when emergency services reached them. The child had to have emergency surgery to remove a portion of their skull. Well, Samantha and Micah decided while their child was in the hospital to rent an Airbnb to be closer. During this time that they were there, they got into an altercation. At some point during this altercation, Micah had gone into the bathroom and then he stormed out. He picked Samantha up by her shoulders, threw her on the couch, straddled her, all while holding a hatchet. When Samantha tried to pick up her phone and call for help, he grabbed it out of her hand, threw it at the wall. Still, she managed to wiggle out, run into the street yelling for help, and law enforcement was called. So now he's being held with no bond. So not only is the Utah dad that forced his 3 young children up a 10-mile treacherous hike charged with torture, but he's now being held with no bond for attacking his wife with a hatchet. If you'll remember the story, back in October.
Interesting humans we face on a regular basis, isn't it? I just love how I just come across so many unique different people. My first and foremost, my thoughts and prayers with the children. Yeah. Above everything else. Not only for the healing and going through all of the recovery, but the trauma that they're most likely going to suffer from because of this. Disgusting, tragic. Every word that you can think of that would describe being unpleasant. That's how I feel about this story. Off first and second watch, what's your thoughts on this one? Zay, talk to me. How you feeling about what you've seen?
Honestly, I just feel like that's horrible. It's no family should be going through that. And the fact that this is happening out there is just it's outrageous. And you wouldn't think it would happen to you.
I'm glad you pointed that out. Coach, what about you?
Man, it's devastating. It's definitely brutal and harsh to watch, especially what happened to the kids, and then the continued drama that continued on when they got over to the other location for recovery of the kids. Just difficult to watch.
I don't think anybody expects to go into a relationship, let alone a marriage, having this in the back of their mind that one day the love of your life is going to be responsible for your hurt ever. So it's like you see stories like this, it's hard to believe that they happen, but you hear about it so frequently. It's like, all right, now we have to discuss and we have to put this on the table. The brother, in my opinion, I don't know nothing about him. I didn't go into his medical history. I didn't pull up any type of files on his psychosis or nothing like that. But somebody who is doing shit like this, yeah, you got some things going on with you internally that we don't know about. Maybe the wife is aware of it. We're just the outsiders looking in. Do you look at that situation and think he might have some mental things going on? You think it's a little deeper than what this clip is showing us?
I think the beginning. I think the beginnings. You know, if you have kids, you can probably relate a little bit as far as for the pushing them aspect goes, and then maybe sometimes if you are living, because you see a lot of parents kind of live vicariously through their kids, maybe push on to them the things that they wish they would have had or wish they would have done. So just as far as for in that vein, but you know, definitely not him pushing them to the fact that they were falling out and that wasn't enough. So then that would probably be an identifier right there, right? If that wasn't enough as they were falling out, that something was probably wrong. I think, you know, at least a couple of more things that he did afterwards would justify that, yeah, there's probably some mental illness going on or mental fatigue, you know, not to diagnose them, but yeah, definitely some things or red flags as people like to identify with these days.
I agree with Coach, man. It's very clear to say that he either has something going on in his mental or he's on something.
I agree. I'll even go as far as to make an assessment and say that this probably isn't the first time that he's displayed this level of anger. And maybe it was ignored. Maybe she was scared to address it, or maybe she's tried to address it and she was met with, well, something that she didn't know how to deal with. Which in a lot of cases, you see these things with domestic abuse where a person is going through it. You want to walk on eggshells or you're trying to tread lightly because you don't want to get hurt in the process. And it makes it worse when you got children involved. Man, are the signs there early?
Man, I think you touched on it earlier with your point. You said you're never expecting the love of your life to be responsible for hurting you. And I think that's, you know, that was powerful, man, because even if you may be anticipating it, the way they end up hurting you happens in a way that you could never would have thought, you know, would have taken place. So sometimes the signs are there from the outside looking in, but the signs aren't there from the inside looking out because you're so busy convincing yourself that this person wouldn't do these things to hurt you. No, they didn't mean it that way, right? Because so many times we don't interpret people the way they are. We try to interpret them the way we want them to be. And then that's when the miscommunication comes into place. Because the signs are always there if you're just quiet and you just listen and just comprehend what the person is saying instead of trying to interpret what they're saying how you want it to be. So yeah, I definitely think the signs are there. You don't necessarily have to be on guard or defense, but you do have to be on good offense, and as in looking and being aware.
Zay, scenario. You meet somebody, y'all hit it off, everything's smooth. You notice something. It's not blown out of proportion. it's a subtle little jab of that was interesting. Should I really pay attention to that, or it's not really that big of a deal? Some time passes. That same thing that you noticed before, it grew. How do you approach addressing it with your partner, or do you ignore it and continue on with the relationship as is?
I would say, listen, that first instance where you already saw what's happening, and then you're questioning it, and you're like, wait, should I really just let this go? I feel like you should be more conscious of what you're thinking at that point, right? But if you decide to let it go and it happens again, then I will sit my significant other down and I will be like, listen, I have my fair share of thoughts on this ordeal, and I want to have an honest communication with you, honest conversation with you about how I'm feeling in this moment. I should have approached it then, but I'm approaching it now, so we don't have any issues further down the line. And if they continue to push past what I just said, then it's a wrap, in my opinion.
Hey, that was good. That was real good, Zay. Hey, let's double back real quick on your analogy. You said the jab, right? So, I mean, if you watch boxing, you can get knocked out by a jab. Don't disrespect the jab, especially if you can't slip that jab. You know what I mean? They keep jabbing you. They keep jabbing you, and keep hitting you with that passive aggressive communication, and that's what the jab is. It's that passive aggressiveness. Then eventually, you get tired of it, and then what happens? Now you start slipping the jab. Right? And so now what kind of relationship? You got a toxic relationship because now every time somebody gets the opportunity, they slip in jabs. And then now somebody wants to throw a knockout blow, and then that's when the relationship escalates into something, that's uncontrollable. All the emotion is involved, no logical thinking, no problem solving, no communication. So yeah, I would say when they start slipping those jabs, then that's probably when it's time to have a conversation, because the difference is if when it's verbal, we don't look at it the same as abuse. It's still verbal abuse, but we always, relate to the physical abuse because you can see those marks. The verbal abuse is still there, but it's just psychological. You know what I mean? So I think you have to pay, if not more attention to the verbal than the physical, because a lot of times people are aware that verbal, they're emotional, they'll wear that. And then that's when the mood swing starts to happen. And, people start to get depressed. And then now you got people thinking about unaliving themselves. And it's a whole process that we all suck at identifying, because if we didn't, we would catch it more.
I'm glad you brought that up because I'm thinking about what you said earlier about not going into it with the resume in your face, like you're interviewing the person. That's not how it's supposed to go. Considering the circumstances, though, is there a way to balance that out? Like, I'm not coming to y'all with your Indeed profile, right? I'm coming into this genuinely looking for my future wife and things of that nature. But I also still want to make sure that you remain focused and alert. Because I mean, I might be in a space where I indirectly throw a jab at you and I don't know it. You should be able to say to me, hey, you kind of punched me a little bit. That kind of hurt. Watch where you're swinging, right? And vice versa. How do you balance that? You don't want to come off like you're da 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 da, but you also still want to be like, okay, we here.
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. So you can't balance communication, right? Because everybody's a human, everybody's emotional. But what you can do is explain or even take a personality assessment. Learn how somebody likes to communicate with. Because a lot of times, man, people don't know how they like to be communicated with because they're so busy pretending to be somebody that they're not. They don't really know what they actually may like until it gets into an uncomfortable situation and they realize that's why they're reacting that way is because in actuality, they don't like to pretend to be a certain way and they don't like to be treated a certain way. And so once you learn how somebody likes to communicate, then that's what you can do, man. You make a conscious decision to communicate them differently. And you know what the young folks call it today? They call it code switching.
Mm-hmm.
It's not code switching. It's every time you encounter somebody differently, it warrants a different reaction, right? You meet people with energy. So the energy I'm meeting you with is the energy you're going to reciprocate. It's good, bad, or different. I could be in a happy mood as long as I address you and I'm happy. You're probably going to be happy. If I address you, I'm pissed off. You're probably going to react, because you're going to be wondering why I'm projecting that shit on you. You know what I mean? So again, it goes back to trying to understand how people communicate, how they like to be communicated with, and it's the thing we overrated, underappreciated because you text people so much these days. It's no emotion. It's just words on screen. And then now you got to become a master of throwing emojis down, after everything. Don't put a period somewhere. And it's not really how people communicate. And then we interact with each other in real life. And then we act like we have no emotion and we're just talking to each other, talking at each other instead of learning how to listen, comprehend, and then, vice versa, not cutting people off when they talk, allowing them to finish a sentence. Just look, the simple things, man. It's not really that difficult.
I agree with Bruce Hodge. I just wanted to acknowledge that real quick. It's like chipping away at somebody. You testing the waters, and if you allow the waters to continue to bubble, eventually you're going to wear the person down if they don't really know themselves. So you do have to know yourself. You do have to know your limits. You got to be fair to you and them. And I'm gonna say this because I do have a question. You gotta put that stuff in perspective immediately. We're talking about a woman who had children with this person, so it's like before I even consider that, I gotta make sure that this is where we got to draw the line on both sides. Because if I see danger or potential for it, there's no way we can move forward with a wedding and all of that stuff. Like that's crazy to me. And sometimes I'm looking at people like you are so in love or enthralled with the idea of it, and you're so infatuated with the person that you'll take that negative and you'll keep brushing it aside. You can't do that. So I was going to ask, and this is a question for anyone though. How do you know when you understand how you want to be communicated with? what does that look like to you specifically? We ain't gotta talk about a multitude of folks, but for you, how does that look like? Because some people don't know. You just said it. Some people don't know. So, one example.
Well, you've already said it. You said on the pod that you don't like to be yelled at. You like to have calm conversations. You know what I mean? So that kind of explains how you like to be communicated. But what happens is you get to understand the why, and I think that's what's important. You already know if you grew up with somebody screaming and hollering at you, your parents or whatever the case may be. Then more times, 9 times out of 10, you don't want to be bothered with that type of attitude, or the kids call it nowadays that type of vibe. But so you know what you like and dislike, but the most important thing is to understand the why and how it can benefit you. That way you know how to use your personality. And a lot of people do, but sometimes more or less they use it for evil versus good. And then we call that hustling or charming, scamming, whatever you want to call it. But majority of people, they know how to do it and are successful at it. And most people may call it manipulating. But again, it's just you learn the why. And then that way you can explain to somebody else, hey, look, this is why, I prefer this type of environment. This is why, or I like the type of people that motivate me. So you get to understand, why you like the type of people that motivate you. For instance, if you like a Les Brown or, Chris Brown, whichever Brown that you gravitate towards, it'll explain to you on the reasons why. And that helps you out, man, professionally and, just in every relationship, because it's all about communication. Again, everything that you do is you're communicating. So once you master that, everything tends to get a lot easier.
Got you. I got you. I see you in the building, Sid. It's all good. Go ahead, Zay. Same question.
Yo, I just wanted to say, yo, Coach, what you just said was very underrated. Because no one understands how underrated your why actually is. They brush that off, and I'm learning that right now, that my why is shaping me to be who I want to be. So that really that hit me with just now what you just said. So I feel like your why, it goes hand in hand with what I was about to say. Your why also shows in your actions towards your significant other. So every little thing speaks. It doesn't necessarily have to be words. It could be in your actions. I made sure my significant other was fed and vice versa. Little things like that, it adds up. So I think why you're doing those things, it shows very clearly. That's what I'm saying.
No, hey man, exactly right. Like you said, but don't minimize it just with the significant other. It's a relationship. Just like if you're on a block and you got a crew that you hanging out with, your why matters. I got to be able to trust you. I got to make sure you got my 6. You know what I mean? We got to make sure we understand what's going on. So again, we just can't minimalize it and just leave it for one particular area, because it really is throughout relationships and everything that you do. And when people realize that, and that's why, back in the day, you had the bartering system, you had to have something of value. And then we get an even exchange. But again, when people in such a world now where they only care about just themselves, the cutoff culture, you're not building. So you don't have to have any value, right? So no foundation needed, because it's just me standing on my own, which couldn't be 100% the opposite, right? It's totally not that. You need people, you need relationships, each one teach one, that whole village concept. So yeah, it's just the way of thinking nowadays. But I just want to piggyback on what Zay said.
Sydney just added some more context to this story. She said that the dad was found tampering with the kids' medical equipment. You weren't here earlier, but I asked the question: was or is this gentleman suffering from some type of mental ailment or to that degree because of the extremes in this story? You bringing that up to the forefront convinces me more now that my assessment wasn't too far off. I don't know any human being or rational adult that would do that right there, period. And going back to what you both just brought up, I'm wondering. I always ask this question to myself specifically though. Um, do men and women have these real dialogues? Bruce even brought it up as well, drawing lines and having that effective communication. Are we really doing that, or are we just pacifying each other at the beginning? Because it feels like we're just pacifying each other at this point. And you say it's not the first time he threatened to kill them. Yeah, that was another thing that I said. There had to be other signs. That couldn't have been the first. That was just like you speaking your in like scientific term with the volcanoes and messing around with Mother Nature, right? The Earth eventually gives birth pains. It can only sustain so much of that pressure over time until you see that eruption or that storm. He's most likely have displayed these type of characteristics throughout the marriage, and this was just one of those things where it just kind of spilled over. I hear the mic.
Yeah, I'll say. What about? Well, ask questions about the people that was around them, right? I mean, I'm sure they had friends and family, so it would be great to hear about, the people that didn't identify, some of the issues. That, like you just said, they had to be signs. They had to display something. So they had to be, people that saw. And again, we talk about that, people identifying possibly, verbal abuse, signs of verbal abuse, right? And people will witness it, and then they'll say things like, well, they ain't got nothing to do with me. But then, these things happen, and then they get to a point where, like you said, people snap, and those, again, you got to say something, man. I mean, because you can't wait till this to be the end result. So, people know it, people see it, and I would just wonder how do people feel that didn't say something? How do they feel now? That's what I would wonder.
How much of this do you think could be minimized if people listen more to their friends and family? Because I mean, be honest, most people are not going to listen to you.
Yeah, none of it.
Yeah.
None of it. But that's not the point. The point is, right, it's accepted now because nobody says anything. So now you have to be, quote unquote, a hero or brave to say something. But then if one person only says something, it doesn't do anything, but it does start a trend. So now if the one person continuously says something, now other people may feel ostracized because they aren't saying something and start to question their morals and their values. Wait, if he keeps saying something, if he keeps going up there and calling bullshit, and I'm not saying something, is something wrong with me? So again, the intent is to plant a seed, and maybe one more, then another one, and then another one. But it got to start with somewhere.
At the battle zone, the husband forces his children up a 10-mile hike, on a 10-mile hike, they freeze, get hypothermia. They're in the hospital. They're both, well, all of them going through like some real extreme pain, some real extreme suffering. The wife involved with this situation seems to be in an abusive situation. They apprehend the husband. He's being held without bond. So it's pretty much, we're speaking on domestic abuse. We're speaking on communication, lack thereof, and a few other things that contribute to this story as well. Sydney added more context throughout the show, letting us know that this wasn't the first time that he's been abusive in some shape, form, or fashion, and he actually tampered around with medical equipment for the kids. Zay, real quick, because I had some follow-ups. I didn't ask this, but I guess I can ask it now. Is this a case of poor vetting?
Like in terms of like doing your research on the person?
Right. I mean, they got married, and okay, you got married, but so what? Just because you got married, that don't mean that you actually went through the proper process to, some people just hitchhike and go down to the court office and fill out some papers because, oh, we caught a vibe. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's my question.
I mean, I feel like that point is valid because that most of the time, I watched a documentary with someone, and this similar story happened to another family. It happens all the time, and as horrible as that is, no matter if you do the proper vetting, I feel like it will still happen regardless. It just depends on who the person is. Some, like, what if you're in a situation where they're high school sweethearts and they're in love, right? And you wouldn't think anything. You wouldn't think anything of this person because they haven't shown it in the past. So why would they start doing uh why would they start doing things that mess with you now, if that makes sense? But I just feel like no matter if you do the proper vetting or not, you should just remain aware no matter what. And I feel like, yeah, I'm gonna keep it at that.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Sid, you're the founder of this here story, so I know you have a little more history with this one. We pretty much spoke on a few things here. Is there some more context that you want to add to it? Anything from what we said or we missed?
I'm not sure. I didn't catch all of what you guys were talking about because I didn't recognize that you were streaming until I went on YouTube and I was like, wait a minute, there's a live stream right now? Dang it. And then I looked at the time. I'm still not used to the time difference. But some of the things that stuck out to me that really were red flags to me is he recorded a lot of videos while he was up there. And he also was texting his wife one of his excuses that he gave was he didn't have service, but he was still texting his wife, and he also had service. They had like people that are hikers in those regions, rescuers that go up to those areas, know that you have service in that area, even if there are bad storms. So the fact that he did not call for help was a huge red flag for me. Another thing that stuck out is there's numerous videos that he took where his children were begging him to go back down, and they were saying like, please dad, I'm cold, please let's go down, I don't want to keep going. He was having them walk through snow that was like waist deep. He was taking them up trails that even some of the people that were weighing in, the experts that were weighing in, were saying like, those are some hikes that even experts won't take because it's so dangerous. Like the rocks are really hard to climb over. It's unstable. He said at some points, even the rescuers had a hard time getting through that terrain. But the fact that his children were begging to go back, and he was saying, no, we have to reach the summit. We have to get to the summit. Even though the storm was coming through and everything, his wife was sending him messages, bring my children back right now. He was insistent that they had to go up to the summit, which to me, all of that's a lie. Like I really think he was going through something and was, I think he was trying to kill his kids. No lie. The other red flag that I mentioned in the chat is he was banned from the hospital because he was found tampering with his child's life-saving equipment. He was messing with the breathing tubes. He was messing with the heart stuff that the kid was wearing. And I can't remember, I can't find the article at the moment, but I remember reading something about how in the past he had like admitted to a therapist that he wanted to kill his kids, that he wanted to kill himself. And he's done other questionable behaviors before. And then also the fact that he left his kids behind to go get help. And apparently, according to law enforcement, he seemed rather calm when he showed up to get help. Like he didn't seem to be frantic or anything like that. And I mean, the fact that you had your 8-year-old doing CPR on your 4-year-old or 2-year-old, I forgot which one it was, is mind-boggling. Like no parent, like if my child right now was not breathing, his heart wasn't pumping, I would not be having my son doing CPR on my daughter. I would be the one doing CPR on my child. So the fact that he's having responses that to me are antithetical to what the purpose of a parent is are all huge red flags. Okay, so an interaction with Cottonwood Heights police said a month earlier he had been expressing suicidal ideations. And I think he had actually been hospitalized for that at some point. It said on November 10th, he had to be removed from Primary Children's Hospital for interfering with his son's care and tampering with the equipment. He also has been arrested for under investigation of domestic violence towards his wife as well. So I partially wonder if she had expressed the desire to leave and if that could potentially be the trigger for this, because I know this time after time in domestic violence cases, not all of them, but in a decent number of them, as soon as the spouse finds out they're about to be left, they take the lives of the spouse and or the children, because whatever's going through their mind, they don't want to share the kids, they don't want to deal with that, avoidance, whatever's going on in their mind. It's unfortunately a thread in domestic violence cases where they'll take the lives of their family members to avoid being abandoned. So yeah, a lot. When I first heard this story, I just thought it was pure stupidity. But the more I looked into this, the more I heard the voice calls, saw the text messages. This was very clearly with intent. I have no doubt in my mind that he was trying to hurt his children, and potentially even frame it as he was the hero dad that came down and tried to rescue his kids and blah blah blah. But I have no doubt that he was hoping that those kids were dead by the time that they were found. That way he could basically just be like, "Oh, I lost them," or whatever. But the fact that his daughter was able to corroborate the or um, to combat the lies that he was telling, and she had the wherewithal to understand what was happening, I think was his undoing in a sense. Because obviously, like that 4-year-old, the 2-year-old, they're probably not going to be able to understand what was happening, but she definitely seemed to understand what was happening. And I think she even said that in an interview. She thought that he was doing this on purpose. Like she felt really off about the whole situation and didn't feel like he was listening to them at all. So yeah, the fact that multiple people, and I think even they ran into like parks and whatever, and they also were saying like you should not be going up there. There's a storm coming in. Like it is unsafe. It is not good for these kids. Ignored his kids, ignored his wife, ignored authorities. There's no doubt in my mind that he was going through something and he had the intent to kill those children.
I guess that answers my question. And like I'll just say this, me not even having all that information, just off of the little I heard, I knew something was off. Like it's not that difficult to pick up on some of these signs, because that was pretty much Armageddon for a child to me. And if you're willing to do that, I know you've said and done other things that would lead up to that, which is how we ended up on the conversations about vetting and conversation and actually having boundaries and standards and going about really actually getting to know these people before you walk down the aisle with them or before you put that bubblegum ring on them and say, "Oh, we're boyfriend and girlfriend now." You know what I'm saying? And I mean, a lot of people get in these relationships with people assuming that it's going to be everything that they put in front of them initially, but you know that this isn't really you. They know that that isn't really them. And then what ends up happening is you find out that you should have just laid it all out there at the beginning so you wouldn't be here. I'm not blaming her 100% for this. This is monstrous. What I am saying is we don't have this situation unless you're just that blinded by your feelings for the person that you just wave all of these red flags and you just continue to pursue them anyway. That's why I asked earlier. Um, let me go back to it. Is there a case of poor vetting? Was that? Because to me, every time you see somebody that if you get into a situation where a person cheats or they put their hands on you or they're emotionally or mentally abusive, it's because, well, you didn't do proper research on the person before you got extremely close to them. I yield the mic. Actually, I got another question.
Hey, go ahead, Zay. Zay was going to say something.
All right, go ahead. You got it.
No, I was just gonna say that I think it is important to state out that mental health is extremely important. I feel like he's you said before that he showed signs of being suicidal, right? And I feel like those signs should not be taken lightly because, someone that, you know, has been suicidal, what they need support, help to get through it. And without that support, what they're gonna do? Because suicide is pure darkness, in my opinion, it's pure darkness. So if you don't have the support to get through that darkness, you're gonna fall deeper and deeper into that darkness. And then you're gonna start thinking more negative things towards not only yourself but to other people. So I think it's important to state that you should support your people if they're down. So all of that can prevent this situation from happening at all. So just keep that in mind, in my opinion.
I was reading back through some of the articles that were written, and another couple things that caught my attention. Um, he did not have the younger children in appropriate clothing for that trip either. They were wearing just like basic pants and a shirt, no jacket, even though he knew that it was going to be snowing. He also, the other thing too, obviously, this is more speculation. There's no proof of this, but his son was unconscious because, as the father said, he fell and hit his head, which makes me wonder, did he do something to his kid? There was a point where the daughter said he kind of disappeared with his son for a second. So it did make me question if he had actually physically tried to harm his child. I sent a video to you guys, which shows him scouting the location that he was going to take them hiking. And in the police encounter, he was listing off a number of weapons that he had brought with him. And there's even speculation that he attempted to grab one of the weapons while getting out of the car. And so people were also questioning that behavior as well, because this is something that, as you're saying, like people who are planning to commit suicide, they'll show certain signs, and having weapons with them is, especially with men, because men are more likely to use weapons to take their lives. It's not uncommon for them to, like, humans innately don't actually want to die. And when people are contemplating suicide, they give hints because deep down, most people genuinely don't want to kill themselves. They just want the pain to stop, whatever pain they're going through. And so people will generally give subtle hints, whether consciously or subconsciously, in the hopes that somebody will recognize that they're in pain, and in the hopes that maybe there is another option. And so it makes me wonder if these are some of his subtle hints. I mean, even the police officers picked up on it during this stop, that he seemed not quite right. And so I imagine this has been on his mind for a while. And it seems like he's giving these same types of hints. So yeah, that was another thing that kind of stuck out to me, is the fact that he was talking about all these weapons that he had in the car. I think he had some sort of handgun. He had an AR-15, and he had a hatchet that he specifically mentioned as well during that police stop. And I imagine he could have even had other weapons, but again, that's just my speculation. That's not something that they had mentioned in any of the reports. But yeah, that is, I mean, I have a psych background. My focus was like suicide and I'm forgetting the word for it, but I really focused on people that had depression and stuff like that. And that is a red flag that people give off if they are talking about weapons, if they're showing off weapons, or like other methods of suicide, like they're mentioning drugs that they are taking. Some of those can be indicators of somebody's state of mind, and that was something that came to my mind when I was watching that.
Just the clip you shared in the private chat. I just figured I'd play it real quick before we wind down to solution-based replies to close out. Thank you for adding extra context to this story. And actually, I'm glad you brought up those points for the audience, because a lot of people, they weren't aware of what happened here. I wasn't, but I'm gonna play this real quick, and then I'll yield the mic to anybody who wants to add on to, some solutions in terms of moving forward for anybody who might be in this or considering moving forward in something potential.
The story we've been following very closely here on KSL TV. A father accused of taking his children hiking during a winter storm. News specialist Andrew Adams joined us live right now with more on this story. Andrew, what'd you find?
Well, prosecutors have described Micah Smith's behavior as spiraling, and last month he was charged in an unrelated alleged domestic violence assault case. But police say this encounter shows a week prior to that fateful hike, his mental state had some concerns.
It was October 4th in Cottonwood Heights, and an officer had spotted a truck with no visible plates off to the side of Wasatch Boulevard.
What's up, man? Hey, bud. Everything all right? Yeah, I'm just trying to find the trailhead for young people.
The driver, identified as Micah Smith, said he also didn't have his registration or license, which prompted a closer look from police.
I do have a firearm. Okay, appreciate that. Yeah. Keep your hands away from it, and I'll keep my hands off mine.
It was snowing up the canyon, so our officers were trying to figure out if he was okay.
I'm going through a really hard time. You can't even believe.
Smith said he wasn't looking to harm himself or anybody else.
I'm hiking up to the top of the mountain, man. Today?
Today.
But the officer in his report expressed concerns about the man's mental state, and he asked Smith if he could retrieve his gun for safety reasons.
Please exit the vehicle. Stand right here. Do not grab for it. Hey!
He was making comments about going hiking, but he wasn't in any type of clothing that was hiking type clothing. He was in a tank top.
In addition, Smith acknowledged he had other weapons with him, including an AR-15.
An axe. So all things that we would have to be worried about, right? Yeah. On a normal stop for safety.
It was 1 week later that prosecutors said Smith acted in a, quote, depraved manner, taking his kids, ages 2, 4, and 8, hiking up a mountain in Big Cottonwood Canyon in a snowstorm. First responders said they found Smith's 4-year-old son with no pulse and a body temperature of 62. And the dad now faces felony child torture and abuse charges.
It's a tragic incident, and I wish it could have been stopped prior.
I'm not letting him walk off with his guns. Well, he's not in any mental condition to be. I get that.
Police said while they impounded Smith's truck, they had no legal reason to seize his guns and released him to a friend with those weapons. Magazines removed.
I don't know why you had to help me. Like this, I was minding my own business.
They say the situation underscores the challenges of dealing with mental health crises.
The information we had, there was nothing that we could have done that day.
Well, according to police records, Smith was also escorted from Primary Children's Hospital in November for interfering with patient care and tampering with equipment. He continues to be held without bail at the Salt Lake County Jail.
All right. I mean, we dissected this one as much as we could here. I would like to leave a positive I would like to leave a positive outlook on how to move forward in this situation. We still have to do a whole thing on mental health, especially with men. That's for a later date, but just as a collective overall, consuming all of this, and based on everything that we spoke here, what do you say to somebody who is either entertaining the idea of moving forward with somebody, and what do you say to somebody who is probably already in the midst of the relationship with a person, and you want them to find a way out of it safely as possible? I'll yield it to let's go with Zay.
Godspeed. Um, Stay aware. You are always blessed, no matter what obstacle is thrown at you. Even this relationship that you are in, you will get through it. That's all I'm gonna say. You will get through it. Just have faith. Stay strong. Communicate. Do all the things that you should be doing. Don't minimize those things. I like what Coach said. Don't minimize those things.
Sid, what about you?
100% corroborate that. Don't minimize it. If somebody is even hinting at stuff like that, take them seriously. I know some people, especially if they have recurrent issues with mental health, this is something I've experienced myself. People will come at you and be like, "Oh, you're making it up for attention. You're doing this just because you're whatever." Like, people have their reasons, but take them seriously, because you don't want to be wrong and to not take somebody seriously when they do intend to take their lives. And consider yourself, I mean, in loose terms, consider yourself lucky too, because a lot of the time people don't give signs enough to pick up on. And so a lot of people find out too late that their loved one is planning to take their lives. Um, and so if somebody does come to you or is starting to show signs that they may be considering taking their own lives, take them seriously and do everything you can to get them the help that they need. It's something that can happen very quickly, and it people can have a lot of reasons for doing so as well. So yeah, take people seriously when they are showing these signs. And then also on the other end of the spectrum, in terms of abusive situations, domestic violence, child endangerment, also take those seriously. If you are a spouse, if you are a mother or father of even your child, and you're seeing this behavior from your adult child, if you're seeing this from your friend, do not hesitate to go to authorities about that, because children are very vulnerable, and they're not going to be able to voice those things for themselves. And oftentimes, a partner or a parent that is abusive is going to also be manipulative. They're not going to allow that person to understand the full extent of what's going on. They're going to gaslight, and they have all sorts of tactics to keep you from telling people or keep you from recognizing the abuse that you're being put through. And if you see those signs in other people, especially if they're children, I mean, granted, do it for adults too, but like especially for children, because they cannot do that for themselves. You have to step in and you have to do something, because I hear this very frequently. I investigate a lot of stuff like this, these cases. They saw the signs, but they brushed it off because I don't want to believe that about that person. And it had deadly consequences. So do not hesitate to reach out. I know a lot of people have issues with like snitching or turning people in or even being wrong. But honestly, in these types of cases where it can be life and death, it is much better to be wrong and that person was just being whatever they were doing, than to be wrong and lose the lives of these individuals who could have gotten help. So yeah, if you ever see these signs, do not be afraid to help people. And for women, if you are in these circumstances and you feel like you cannot get help, like you're in danger, my biggest pieces of advice, especially if it's somebody that's like basically trying to keep you hostage, get the word out to somebody. One of the most effective methods that I've seen is finding a reason to get out in public. For example, a recent case that I saw, a woman was being abused by her husband, so she insisted that they had to go to the vet to take their dog in, and she just passed a note to the veterinarians in the office, and she was able to get herself help, and he had been planning to take her life. A symbol that a lot of women are starting to use in public is the hand sign to let people know that you're in a domestic abuse situation. And using that, if you're in public, let somebody know. That way they can get you the help and connect you with the help if you're not able to get it for yourself. If you are able to get help, domestic health hotline, going to a hospital, going to a police station, all of these places will be able to help you. There's also women's shelters, homeless shelters can also have stuff like that. But anyone involved in care, and honestly, even your neighbor, your teacher, and like your kid's teacher, all of these people are mandated reporters, and they're going to be able to step in to get you that help that you need. So do not be afraid. It is much better to go and get that help than to keep putting up with it in the hopes that things will improve, because oftentimes in true domestic violence situations, they're not going to improve, and it could end in losing your life. So yeah, don't be afraid to step up. Don't be afraid to get help. You're worth living. So yeah.
You got it, Coach.
Yeah, so I'll just say, one thing we have to do is just unlearn, some of the things we've learned growing up. Things simple as, trying to be tough and just pushing through it. You'll go to the mechanic to get your car fixed. You'll go to the doctor when you're sick. So just make sure you get them some help. Don't try to do it yourself. And don't feel bad about it either, because you're not the subject matter expert. A lot is not focused on the people that's surrounding those people, and maybe supporting them a little bit more to encourage them to step in and do some things. So and get educated on the topic, because sometimes, again, you don't know what you don't know. So do your research and get educated. That way you can help somebody. Great topic.
Definitely. I look forward to chopping this one up, man. Blessings to everybody who pulled up to the chat, wherever y'all watching from. I hope this helped y'all. The open mic tomorrow, 8:00. We here. I'm excited. Looking forward to that, man. I got to do some updating, but we're gonna close the week out strong. I hope you guys drop safe, stay warm, have a great day at work, and see y'all tomorrow. Oh, do me a solid before. Hold on, wait a minute. Do me a solid before you go. I gotta do. This is my favorite part. Hold up. Where is it? Push the goddamn button. Peace.